Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the D5 Audible cheat sheet on Madeira. To understand Madeira, you have to start with the island itself, because almost every challenge and choice in production flows directly from its geography and climate. Madeira has a warm Mediterranean climate, but one that is moderated by the Atlantic Ocean. Summer temperatures average around 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, while winters are mild, averaging around 16 to 17 degrees. These relatively warm winter temperatures mean that a lack of full winter dormancy can be a problem, particularly in the warmest vineyard sites. Rainfall follows a Mediterranean pattern, with most rain falling in autumn and winter. However, rainfall levels vary dramatically across the island. Madeira is a mountainous island of volcanic origin, around 55 kilometers long and 22 kilometers at its widest point, with peaks rising above 1800 meters. This topography creates a wide range of mesoclimates over very short distances. Temperatures decrease with altitude and rainfall increases towards the center of the island. Moist air arriving from the north is forced upwards by the mountains, cooling and condensing into rain clouds. As a result, the central part of the island is significantly cooler and wetter than the coastal areas. In these central regions, rainfall can exceed 3,000 millimeters per year. However, this area is forested, largely uninhabited, and unsuitable for agriculture. Vineyards are therefore located closer to the coast, where rainfall is much lower. Around Funchal, annual rainfall is closer to 650 millimeters, and in parts of the north, such as around Santana, it is less than 600 millimeters. These coastal areas provide the balance of warmth, light, and manageable rainfall needed for grape growing. Only around 450 hectares of vineyards are planted on the island. Vineyards are found up to about 800 meters above sea level and are typically located on steep slopes close to the coast. Soils are volcanic in origin and high in nutrients. Combined with plentiful winter rainfall, these soils create fertile conditions that naturally encourage vigorous vine growth. Without intervention, yields can be very high. Vineyard management is therefore critical. Many vineyards are terraced to make planting on steep slopes possible. Vines are commonly trained using a pergola system known locally as latadas. This training system lifts the canopy and fruiting zone above ground level, allowing air to circulate above and below the vines. This is essential in Madeira's warm, humid climate where fungal disease pressure is high. Pergola training also allows other crops to be grown beneath the vines, making efficient use of land. This is particularly important on an island where the average vineyard holding is just zero point 0.3 hectares. In addition to pergolas, some vineyards are planted using cordon trained spur pruned vines with vertical shoot positioning or VSP. This system, known as espalder, allows for more controlled canopies and can help limit excessive vigor. Disease pressure is a constant challenge. Downy mildew, powdery mildew, grey rot, and phomopsis are all regular threats. Canopy management techniques such as shoot positioning and leaf removal are used to improve aeration, but fungicide sprays are usually necessary to maintain grape health. Irrigation is widely practiced. Rainwater is channeled from the wetter central areas of the island to vineyard zones through an extensive network of small irrigation channels called levadas. The drier south of the island is particularly dependent on irrigation. Harvest timing is tightly regulated. The official harvest date is set by IVBAM or IVBAM in consultation with growers and producers and usually falls at the end of August or at the start of September. Because of the steep terrain, harvesting is almost always done by hand. The minimum permitted potential alcohol at harvest is 9% ABV. In practice, grapes are generally harvested with average potential alcohol of no more than 11% ABV. This reflects the fact that Madeira does not depend on very ripe grapes for balance. Acidity is far more important. Maximum permitted yields vary by vintage, but yields as high as 150 hectoliters per hectare are not unusual. Fertile soils, irrigation, and vigorous growth make such yields easy to achieve. The grape varieties grown on Madeira reflect both history and quality priorities. In the late 19th century, powdery mildew and phylloxera devastated Madeira's vineyards. Many traditional vinifera varieties were destroyed, and American and hybrid vines were widely planted because of their resistance and high yields. However, these varieties produce wines of lower quality. Since the late 1980s, EU financial schemes have supported extensive replanting with vinifera varieties. Current regulations no longer permit the use of American or hybrid grapes for Madeira production. Permitted vinifera varieties are classified as either recommended or authorized. The recommended varieties are Cercial, Verdejo, Boal, Malvasia, Terrantes, and Tinta Negra. These are valued for their quality potential, although plantings of the traditional white varieties remain small. Grape prices reflect this, with traditional varieties fetching much higher prices than Tinta Negra. Tinta Negra is the most widely planted grape on the island. It is easy to grow, high yielding, and versatile. It can be used to produce Madeira at all sweetness levels. Since 2015, it has been permitted to appear on labels, although this is still uncommon. Tinta Negra is often used for wines labeled by sweetness rather than by variety. Cercial is a white grape variety with very high acidity and is used for the driest styles of Madeira. It is late ripening and often harvested last, particularly in cooler sites where it may only reach the minimum potential alcohol. It is resistant to powdery mildew but susceptible to grey rot and poor fruit set. Plantings are small. Verdejo is the second most planted vinifera variety. It also has high acidity, though slightly lower than Cercial. It is susceptible to grey rot, coolio, downy mildew, and powdery mildew. Boal, also known locally as Malvasia fina, grows best on warm, low altitude sites in the south of the island. It is susceptible to drought and requires irrigation. It is typically used to produce medium sweet wines. Malvasia is an umbrella term for several unrelated varieties. Malvasia candida was historically the most prized, but is now very rare due to its susceptibility to powdery mildew. The most common Malvasia today is Malvasia de Sao Jorge, which can produce high yields of grapes with both high sugar and high acidity, but is highly susceptible to grey rot. It is the principal variety used for Mamse. Terrantes is very rare. It is susceptible to powdery mildew and botrytis bunch rot and is therefore harvested early, soon after reaching the minimum 9% potential alcohol. Despite this, it is valued for its ability to produce delicate wines with high acidity. For the D5 exam, the core insight from this episode is this: Madeira's vineyard environment produces vigorous wines, high yields, and moderate sugar levels, but retaining acidity is the overriding priority. Climate, altitude, irrigation, training systems, and grape variety choice are all aligned to produce grapes that can withstand fortification, heat, oxidation, and decades of aging. I hope this helps, and I'll see you at the next episode.